away with everything under the last boss, and it wasn't good for me at all. So I want guidance. I want leadership. But don't just like boss me around, you know? Like lead me. Lead me when I'm in the mood to be led.
Hello all, Jace here. Today we're going to go over a clip from the Whatever podcast they recorded the other night, where they're talking about the women's right to vote and whether or not women want to be led by men. So let's get straight into it.
That's insanity. It's the same thing at the national level. This idea of endless hedonism and individualism with absolutely no thought to the greater society at whole is pure female solipsism. Men seem to understand this very well, and the men I talk to go, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. We probably should move towards those things. But when you look at voting patterns, that's what those things move to. Patriotism, nuclear family, anti-degeneracy, that's what men vote for. Women vote purely around solipsism and let me do what I want, which is just crazy to me.
If everyone understands that this is the optimal option, why do you think, especially in this day and age, there's so many people who disagree with that?
Okay, I'm going to give you the answer, and you're not going to like it. For one reason only, because of women's suffrage. Women's suffrage absolutely destroyed the United States of America, and women's voting patterns prove it. And the truth of the matter is that women vote mostly against risk-taking. And because they vote mostly against risk-taking, they impede on people's freedoms. And so individual people, men especially, who had the opportunity to vote out illegal immigration, keep the country exactly how they wanted it to be, that was all completely destroyed by female suffrage. Men, if only men had been able to vote in the United States of America, right now, the United States of America would be beyond the glorious shining example on the hill. It would be beyond that. And the voting patterns prove it. Every single time it's a vote for security over the freedom to actually pursue these higher values, women vote against it almost every single time.
Okay.
And that's what I think. I think that that's the primary problem. The primary problem was is that the two sexes do not see eye to eye on what is valuable. Mm-hmm. And this is why I think that one's going to have to inevitably choose, and it'll always move back that way. That all of this, what you see before you right now with egalitarianism, this will all reset eventually, and it'll just go back to primitivism. Men will be in charge anyway.
Andrew, you're going to get canceled if you're talking like that, Andrew. You got to be careful. You're going to get canceled, my friend.
I don't think so. I think I've never actually. You know who knows this better than anybody? Feminist theorists know this better than anybody else. Feminists are the ones who came up with force doctrine. I just borrowed it from them. They were the ones who understood that men at any time collectively could take charge, and there was very little women could do. Feminists theorized all of this. They knew all of this years and years before I was ever born, hundreds of years before I was born, in fact. Almost 200 years before, in fact. It's their own writings that I go off of. The feminists insisted that women had the right to vote, but when it came to women voting for the right to vote, they wouldn't let them do it because every time women had the opportunity to vote on their own voting rights, they voted against it. Every single time.
But this is what I see when women say they want a masculine man, dominant man, a man who's a leader, who has leadership characteristics, who takes initiative. You want all these traits, but you want to pick and choose. You want the man to be able to turn that shit on with a light switch. You only want him to be a leader in some contexts. In other contexts, you want him to be a good, submissive boy, pat him on the head. Good boy. It's just interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think anything is black or white generally. Things very nuanced. Well, it's true. I mean, if you want to talk about things like that, relationships, it just isn't. It isn't. It's like
no, but it's not.
It's two humans. They're very complex. No, it doesn't have to be just one way or just the other way. You have two people. It's very complex. And first of all, I think that masculinity and like femininity, let's say, and everyone's kind of like there on the spectrum, kind of, right? So everyone's gonna find someone that's like complementary to them.
No, but
So-
like if you ask most women, like
Yeah.
they want a guy to take the lead, to take charge.
Yeah.
In the dating context,
Yeah.
you want the guy to make pretty much all the moves.
Like I do
Women
agree
don't
that
wanna
women are
take
contradictory. I agree with that. I know what you
And
mean,
you
and I
want a
agree with
man.
that.
Like you see these memes, like I want a guy who's going to say, "Be ready at 7 p.m. I'm going to pick you up. We're going here." Y'all want that, but then you also kind of don't want. Like they're totally mixed signals. And then also you say you want a leader, but like you don't want to follow is the big thing. In order for somebody to be able to lead, if you want a man who's a leader,
Yeah.
you got to be a follower. There is no, we can't both be the leader.
You don't think you can sometimes be, sometimes not be? You don't think you can kind of like move around?
You can, but if you want the man to be a leader,
Yeah.
I don't really
hear
think you
what mean.
can.
If that's what you want, and yeah.
If that's what you like,
Yeah.
yeah, there can be some dynamics like that.
Yeah.
But if you want, broadly
Yeah.
speaking, and I think women broadly speaking want men to be leaders.
Yeah, what you're saying is like they're contradictory with themselves.
But
Like
the
they're-
thing, yeah,
and I
it's
get
like
it. Yeah.
on a sort of biological, evolutionary level, you're attracted to men who are leaders, who are confident, who take initiative, who are masculine, who are dominant, who have those leadership traits. But feminism has put it into your mind not to be a follower. So you won't be submissive. You won't follow his lead. But you want him to be a leader. You want him to take the initiative. You want him to lead, but you won't follow. Be the leader, but I won't follow you. Doesn't make sense. That doesn't work.
Yeah.
If you want a leader, somebody's got to be the follower. And I
Yeah.
can't lead with somebody who won't follow.
Yeah. But it doesn't mean that you must not have an opinion.
What's
Because
that?
sometimes it doesn't mean that you must not have an opinion. Like you're still in a relationship, right? Like I understand your synergy of like followers and a leader. But in any leader follower, you still have you're still gonna have discussions. You're still gonna
Nope.
just earlier you said,
Nope.
well, that's
Okay, I cut it there. From there, they go into the full submission argument and all that, and I don't really agree with Andrew's take on the full submission of the wife. I mean, I know technically he's got biblical ground for it. I feel that relationships with your wife should be a little more relational. She should play more of a mentor role. So I think he's a little hard line on the submission thing. Brian equates it to being the CEO of a corporation. You know, you don't ask for permission to give an order, which is obviously true. But once again, I don't think an employee-employer relationship is the same thing as a marriage. I think there's a little more relational. I think that the women have a larger role to play in sharing their thoughts and ideas. But I do think both of these concepts, between women having the right to vote and women wanting men to lead in a relationship, are both symptoms of kind of the same disease. And so I started really thinking about it because I was like, what Andrew said about voting habits is true. Like he made me really start to question my own ideas on this. Does that make sense? I do believe, and I'm gonna put this up there. These are generalities. I am not saying 100% of women or 100% of men. Everything I'm about to say is the majority of men and the majority of women. So let me just put that out there right off the top. But I do think as a whole, men are better equipped to lead. Men are natural leaders. Women are natural followers. Like I said, that's not always true, but it is the plurality. It is true. So it really made me think, man, is he onto something? And I just couldn't fully be swayed. And so that really made me start to think, why can't I be swayed on this? If it's appealing to me, what's holding me back? And as I thought more and more about it, I thought, well, in my opinion, you couldn't really make a good case for women not having the right to vote and only men voting unless you went back to a household vote. Because I don't think a woman's place is purely submissive. I do believe that that the female mindset, the female approach, their priorities in their decision making are valid and valuable, and they need to weigh in to the household's voting habits, just like they need to weigh into everything else the household does. I think both sets of opinions need to be considered to find the optimal solution to a problem. That's true for voting habits too. So the only way you could really get there is if you had a household vote, which I kind of agree with. I kind of like that idea. Um, so why can't we make that happen? That was my next. I'm just kind of walking you guys through my thought process. What's stopping us from having a household vote? Well, we don't have households anymore. So that's kind of a big obstacle in our path. Um, I think between feminism, between primarily feminism, but there's a lot of factors. Um, Men are weaker than they used to be. Men aren't the leaders that they used to be. And you see it. You see it with the lack of testosterone in the West. You see it with, with marriage rates, with divorce rates, with the number of children being born. Men are weaker than they used to be. And so where I kind of landed on this was you you can't take the women's right to vote away until you have strong men creating households and then standing up, being the leaders, and making that household or championing that household vote. You can't move to one without the other. And that's kind of where I landed on this. Um, and once again, you can blame feminism and women and all these external factors on this, but it goes back to, well, if men are supposed to be the leaders, why are we blaming women? If we're going to blame women for our problems, then aren't they the leaders? Right? So you need men who are going to be willing to step up, stand up, clean their room, take care of their own, and actually fully assume that leadership role. Once you do that, then you've got stronger households. Then you can talk about a household vote. So I kind of agree with what Andrew and Brian are saying here, primarily Andrew, are saying here. But I think we as men have a long way to go before we can even have these conversations. And it goes back to, the dating thing, the submission thing. Once again, you're not going to submit to a feminized, passive soy boy. You're not. No woman's going to do that. No woman should. Women do want to be led, but they want to be led by a strong man. And so men have to stand up and be that strong man and stop blaming women for that they're not. And one thing, Andrew talked about, how women did not want. It's just something I want to leave you guys with, just to think about, because you see the history tends to repeat itself. Andrew talked about women did not want the right to vote, and he's correct. Originally, they were completely against them having the right to vote. But what spurred on their reluctant acceptance of the concept was, and you'll see it if you really look, the women's suffrage movement goes hand in hand with the temperance movement, which was America's reaction to the growing alcohol epidemic. And so what they saw was their men, their husbands, their leaders were no longer effective leaders because they were drunk all the time. It was, they were debauched. They weren't being the effective leaders that they should be. And so reluctantly, women started to accept that they're going to have to take more of a leadership role in the home, or in the home's effect on larger society anyway. They go hand in hand. And so once again, we let them down, and we need to stand up and we need to fix these problems. But I'm really curious to hear what you guys have to say. What are your thoughts on this? Because I think this is a fascinating topic, and like I said, it kept me up last night just trying to think about how I felt about this. So I'm hoping that if it made me do that much reflection, that maybe it's something that you guys think about as well, or I think it's definitely something that we should think about. So let me know your thoughts in the comments. Please like, follow, and subscribe. God bless, and we'll see you for the next one.